Hello and welcome to Quiz Class. I'm your host, Ellen, and today we have 100 questions on general knowledge. To get your pencil and paper ready and keep score so you can tell us how you did with our Quiz Class Einstein Awards. And also make sure to tell us in the comments the answer to the bonus question. So let's dive right in. Which 1960s product claimed to keep kids entertained for hours with a sticky paddle and rubber ball? Paddle ball, super ball, or jacks? Super ball. Which 1960s film was the first to use a fully synchronized pop soundtrack rather than a traditional orchestral score? A Hard Day's Night, The Sound of Music, or West Side Story? A Hard Day's Night. What lesser-known president signed the Coinage Act of 1873? Chester A. Arthur, Rutherford B. Hayes, or Ulysses S. Grant? Ulysses S. Grant. Which European city's metro system features stations decorated as an underground art gallery? Moscow, Paris, or Stockholm? Stockholm. In literature, what 1937 novel introduced the character Tom Joad? The Sun Also Rises, Of Mice and Men, or The Grapes of Wrath? The Grapes of Wrath. What 1972 car model was famous for a curved shark nose hood design and later appeared in a James Bond movie? The Ford Mustang Mach-1, the Jaguar XJ6, or the Aston Martin V8? The Jaguar XJ6. What 1950s animated film was the first to combine live action and animation in a feature-length story? Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, or Song of the South? Alice in Wonderland. Which composer created The Planets, a suite inspired by astrology? Gustav Holst or Igor Stravinsky? Gustav Holst. The Citroën DS, launched in 1955, was revolutionary for which automotive innovation? Fuel injection, the first V12 engine, or hydropneumatic suspension? Hydropneumatic suspension. We have reached question 10. Which 1960s toy featured tiny bendable action figures with interchangeable clothes and accessories? Barbie, G.I. Joe adventure figures, or Playmobil? G.I. Joe adventure figures. What TV show debuting in 1968 used socially conscious storytelling to address racism, poverty, and war? The Carol Burnett Show, Bewitched, or Julia? Julia. Which 1970s musician is credited with pioneering progressive rock with albums like Fragile and Close to the Edge? Pink Floyd, Genesis, or Yes? Yes. The 1960s toy Spirograph was designed to teach children which concept? Simple circuitry, the physics of motion, or geometric patterns and rotational symmetry? Geometric patterns and rotational symmetry. What is the only country crossed by both the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn? Chile, Madagascar, or Brazil? Chile. The siege of Stalingrad in World War II lasted approximately how long? 8, 3, or 5 months? 5 months. The Crystal Palace was primarily made of which materials? Steel and concrete, glass and iron, or wood and plaster? Glass and iron. Which soft drink, first marketed in the 1950s, claimed to be the friendly alternative to Coca-Cola? 7-Up, RC Cola, or Pepsi? Seven-Up. Which television anthology series featured tales of irony and unexpected endings, including The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street? Alfred Hitchcock Presents, I Love Lucy, or The Twilight Zone? The Twilight Zone. The 1957 film 12 Angry Men is renowned for being shot almost entirely in what setting? A jury room, a courtroom, or a police station? A jury room. We are at question 20. What jazz singer performed the 1956 hit It Don't Mean a Thing on a televised special? Sarah Vaughan, Duke Ellington, or Ella Fitzgerald? Duke Ellington. Which nostalgic candy was introduced in 1940 and included a fun-size variant in later years? Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, the Tootsie Roll, or Babe Ruth? Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. What Asian mountain range is home to the source of the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers? Kunlun Mountains, the Himalayas, or the Tibetan Plateau? The Tibetan Plateau. Which 1960s snack was advertised with the slogan, Bet you can't eat just one? Lay's potato chips, Chex Mix, or Cheetos? Lay's potato chips. In North by Northwest, what famous landmark serves as the climax scene? The Empire State Building, Mount Rushmore, or the Golden Gate Bridge? Mount Rushmore. The 1973 oil crisis was triggered primarily by which organization? The IMF, the World Bank, or OPEC? OPEC. Which novel is set on the fictional Macomb County and explores racial injustice? The Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird, or The Grapes of Wrath? To Kill a Mockingbird. The Slinky toy was originally invented for what purpose? As a tension spring demonstration, as a stress relief toy, or for Christmas decorations? As a tension spring demonstration. Which 1971 movie introduced the iconic line, Attica Attica during a prison riot scene? Cool Hand Luke, Dog Day Afternoon, or The French Connection? Dog Day Afternoon. Which artist created Guernica, a painting depicting the horrors of war? Joan Miró, Salvador Dali, or Pablo Picasso? Pablo Picasso. In The Godfather, what unusual sound technique was used during the horse's head scene? Recorded from a mechanical horse, actual horse sounds, or sound effects blended with silence for shock? And that last one is the answer. Who was the first female artist to headline at the Royal Albert Hall in London in 1932? Ella Fitzgerald, Lotte Lehmann, or Billie Holiday? Lotte Lehmann. Which river is considered the world's longest according to current hydrological measurements? The Nile, the Yangtze, or the Amazon? The Nile. The architectural style of the Sydney Opera House was inspired by what natural form? Waves, sails of ships, or seashells? Sails of ships. The Dodge Viper, released in 1992, was inspired by which classic American sports car? The AC Cobra, the Ford GT, or the Shelby Cobra? The AC Cobra. In Chinatown, what infamous plot twist shocked audiences regarding Evelyn Mulray? She was her own daughter's mother. She stole a fortune, or she faked her death? She was her own daughter's mother. Which 1950s snack was advertised with the slogan, good? Hostess Twinkies, Hershey's Chocolate, or Campbell's Soup? Campbell's Soup. Which sitcom featured the catchphrase, "Well, isn't that special"? Happy Days, Saturday Night Live, or The Jeffersons? Saturday Night Live. Which 1970s handheld electronic game featured a red LED light and required quick reflexes to avoid obstacles? The Mattel Electronic Football, Space Invaders, or Simon? The Mattel Electronic Football. Which 1968 film shocked audiences with its realistic depiction of a Manson family-style cult? The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, or Night of the Living Dead? Night of the Living Dead. What 1960s European car introduced the concept of front-wheel drive compact executive sedan? The BMW 200, the Alfa Romeo Giulia, or the Citroën DS? The Alfa Romeo Giulia. Which 1973 film's infamous chest-ripping scene broke special effects taboos for its time? The Alien, The Exorcist, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? The Exorcist. The first color broadcast of a major sporting event in the U.S. was which game? The 1964 Olympics, Super Bowl I, for the 1965 World Series? The 1965 World Series. The 1950s Davy Crockett craze popularized what toy accessory? Coonskin cap, flintlock replica, or mini bow and arrow? Coonskin cap. The DeLorean DMC-12, popularized by Back to the Future, was produced in which country? The US, Germany, or Northern Ireland? Northern Ireland. What 1970s TV show introduced the world to Fonzie? Welcome Back, Kotter, Happy Days, or Three's Company? Happy Days. Which 1954 film was the first major motion picture shot entirely in CinemaScope? Sleeping Beauty, The Robe, or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? The Robe. The first documented instance of the protest vote in a U.S. presidential election was in which year? 1832, 1876, or 1824? (1832). Who performed the 1965 hit My Girl? The Temptations, Marvin Gaye, or Stevie Wonder? The Temptations. Which toy of the 1970s allowed kids to create miniature mosaics using small colored pegs? Light Bright, Perler Beads Precursor, or Spirograph? Perler Beads Precursor. And we have reached question 50. The Chrysler turbine car, an experimental 1963 vehicle, ran on what unusual fuel? Jet fuel, diesel, or gasoline? Jet fuel. In which 1960s movie did an iconic character repeatedly ask, "Are you not entertained?" Ben-Hur, Gladiator, or Spartacus? Gladiator. What 1950s musician is credited with the creation of rockabilly music? Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, or Elvis Presley? Elvis Presley. The first known photograph of a U.S. president in office was of whom? Abraham Lincoln, John Quincy Adams, or James Buchanan? John Quincy Adams. The first color TV commercial in the U.S. advertised what product? Bulova watches, Coca-Cola, or Chevrolet cars? Bulova watches. Which 1970s film features the infamous shower massacre in a hotel scene? Black Christmas, Psycho, or Halloween? Halloween. The first mainstream jazz recording to sell over 1 million copies was which song? Take Five, Sing, 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 or Mood Indigo? Sing, sing, sing. Which literary work popularized the concept of the unreliable narrator in early 20th century? The Turn of the Screw, The Great Gatsby, or Ulysses? The Turn of the Screw. Which 1960s toy became infamous for accidentally injuring children with its sharp edges? Tonka trucks, the hula hoop, or Slinky? The Slinky. Which country is home to the world's only square-shaped volcano? Iceland, Japan, or Ethiopia? Ethiopia. In A Clockwork Orange, what unique language do the characters speak? Pig Latin, Nadsat, or Esperanto? Nadsat. The AMC Pacer was nicknamed what due to its unusual proportions? The cheese wheel, the blob, or the flying saucer? The flying saucer. Which 1975 film used actual military helicopters for a Vietnam War assault scene? Platoon, Apocalypse Now, or Full Metal Jacket? Apocalypse Now. Which U.S. president survived an assassination attempt in 1981? Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, or Richard Nixon? Ronald Reagan. The first color photograph ever published in a major newspaper appeared in which decade? The 1920s, the 1930s, or the 1940s? And the answer is the 1930s. Which 1960s TV show was the first to feature a regular African-American female lead? Harriet, Julia, or I Love Lucy? Julia. Which U.S. city served as the temporary capital during the War of 1812? Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, or Baltimore? Baltimore. The AMC Gremlin released in 1970 was notable for what unusual feature? The hatchback design and compact size, the rotary engine, or gull-wing doors? Hatchback design and compact size. Which 1979 movie features a famous scene where a helicopter hovers while soldiers ride in the open? Platoon, Apocalypse Now, or Full Metal Jacket? Apocalypse Now. Who recorded the 1964 hit I Get Around? The Beach Boys, the Beatles, or the Temptations? The Beach Boys. In The Godfather, what item is found in the bed that shocks the audience? A letter, a gun, or a horse's head? A horse's head. Question 71. Which 1960s film featured a shocking plot twist where the hero discovers he's actually a clone? The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Fantastic Voyage, or Planet of the Apes? The Island of Dr. Moreau. In Psycho, the infamous shower scene took how many days to film? 14, 7, or 5? 7 days. The AMC Pacer was notable for which design feature? Rounded bubble shape, rear engine, or gull wing doors? A rounded bubble shape. Which 1960s film featured an innovative 360-degree tracking shot through a hotel? Vertigo, Psycho, or Touch of Evil? Touch of Evil. Which scandal involved U.S. Navy oil reserves being leased in secret in the 1920s? The Teapot Dome, Whiskey Ring, or Watergate? Teapot Dome scandal. Which 1970s toy let kids build miniature roller coasters with tracks and balls? Lincoln Logs, Erector Set, or Hot Wheels track sets? Hot Wheels track sets. In The Godfather, what shocking act sets off the mafia war? A car bombing, shooting of Don Corleone's rival, or a bank heist? The shooting of Don Corleone's rival. Which 1970s slasher film introduced a mass killer stalking teenagers? Halloween, Black Christmas, or Friday the 13th? Halloween. The Great Smog of 1952, which killed thousands, occurred in which city? Berlin, Paris, or London? London. We are at question 80. The Chicago World's Fair of 1893 introduced which major invention to the public? Automobiles, the Ferris wheel, or the telephone? The Ferris wheel. Which city was the first to implement a subway system in the US? Boston, New York City, or Chicago? Boston. Which film featured a famous scene where a man whispers into a phone, "Hello, Clarice"? Halloween, The Silence of the Lambs, or Psycho? The Silence of the Lambs. The eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815 caused which climatic phenomena? The year without a summer, a little ice age, or the Dust Bowl? The year without a summer. Which jazz musician is known as the father of cool? Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, or Miles Davis? Miles Davis. Which U.S. president's face appears on the $50 bill? Ulysses S. Grant, Thomas Jefferson, or Abraham Lincoln? Ulysses S. Grant. Which 1960s movie featured a famous swimming pool murder scene? Cape Fear, Psycho, or La Piscine? La Piscine. The Lincoln Continental of the 1960s became famous for what feature? Gull-wing doors, taillights, or suicide doors? Suicide doors. Which famous painting is nicknamed La Gioconda? The Last Supper, the Mona Lisa, or Girl with a Pearl Earring? The Mona Lisa. Which 1960s film featured a plane hijacking that inspired later action thrillers? Airport, North by Northwest, or The Flight of the Phoenix? The Flight of the Phoenix. And we have reached question 90. Which American city was originally founded as a French fur trading post in 1673? Detroit, New Orleans, or St. Louis? St. Louis. The Halifax explosion of 1917 was caused by what? A gas leak, a collision of two ships, or a train derailment? A collision of two ships. Who wrote the short story The Lottery, shocking readers with a dark twist? Kurt Vonnegut, Ray Bradbury, or Shirley Jackson? Shirley Jackson. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 protested what? Tea Act, Taxation Without Representation, or Stamp Act? Taxation Without Representation. Which film famously ends with the line, Rosebud? Sunset Boulevard, I Love Lucy, or Citizen Kane? Citizen Kane. Which U.S. state experienced the only recorded cholera epidemic in 1832? Louisiana, New York, or Pennsylvania? Louisiana. Who had a 1956 hit with Rock Around the Clock? The Temptations, Chuck Berry, or Bill Haley and His Comets? Bill Haley and His Comets. The first action figure toy was marketed as what? Barbie dolls, Captain America, or G.I. Joe? G.I. Joe. Which country is home to the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world? Iraq, Egypt, or Syria? Syria. Which toy allowed kids to simulate miniature battles with small plastic soldiers? Tinker Toys, Lincoln Logs, or Army Men sets? Army Men Sets. Question 100. Which 1970s film features a haunted hotel and twin girls in the hallway? The Conjuring, The Shining, or Halloween? The Shining. And for our bonus question, the Salem witch trials took place in which year? Let us know the answer in the comments and of course how well you did with our quiz class Einstein rewards. Thanks for playing and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.